Hello there, booktube. I'm here with another review. This time I am reviewing Elevation by Stephen King. This is marketed as a novel. However, as you can see, it is really very thin. To call this a novel is pushing it a bit, I would say. Especially when you consider that not only is this a thin book, but it also contains, in the back part of the book, a short story called The Night Knocker, which I'm assuming is by Stephen King, because it doesn't say that it's by anyone else. And it also contains, I believe it's the first chapter. Is it the first chapter of The Institute? Oh no, the Night Knocker is a chapter from The Institute, which means that from this book, I'm just going to highlight. You can see there, that bit at the bottom, that is an excerpt from The Institute. So, actually, about a fifth of the pages of this very, very thin book is something I'm not going to read, because I have The Institute over there. I don't need to read an excerpt of it in another book. So, this is profoundly tiny. Now, I say that books were this small, generally speaking. Like, this is not a tiny novel by novel standards if you go back 100 years. There are books that are this small. George Orwell's Animal Farm is smaller than this. Most books were tiny. The average length of a novel in the 1800s, like say 1850, the average length of a novel was around 65 to 70,000 words. Now this is significantly less than that. It's around 37,000 words, I believe, which is admittedly very small. It is barely a novel. In fact, I think technically it is a novella, because I believe the definition of novella is less than 40,000 words, and this does not hit 40,000 words. So I do believe it is technically a novella, not a novel, but you can get some profound works that are 40,000 words. You can get profound works that are less than that even. Every single one of the works of HP Lovecraft are smaller than this. They are around the 30,000 words or less for most of HP Lovecraft's works. The majority of the works of old sci-fi authors such as H.G. Wells or Jules Verne are less than 70,000 words, most of them less than 60,000. Same with Robert Louis Stevenson. If you look at The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, that is around the same length as this. Treasure Island is only around 72,000 words. Classic novels were a lot shorter, so don't assume that a book this small is going to be worthless or is going to be reductive or not worth your time. There are a lot of tiny books that are well worth a read, and Stephen King is really, really good at writing novellas. He has multiple novella collections, and they are some of his best work. Examples include The Shawshank Redemption, The Body. These are some of the best loved that he's ever done. Others would include The Mist. A lot of people give The Langoliers a lot of hate. I think that the book is actually quite disturbing. The film is hilariously terrible, but the book is quite disturbing, I think. The Sundog was really, really well written. Apt Pupil is fantastic. There are loads and loads of novellas written by Stephen King that are really, really good. He can write a succinct tale that is well worth your time. And he's really, really good at even short stories. Like 12 to 30-page short stories. He's written dozens of them, and they're really good. So, going into this, I was hoping that Stephen King, who is someone I know can write short fiction, would have produced something worth my time. And sadly, this is pedestrian and boring. I do not recommend Elevation. The storyline is predictable and kind of pedestrian. We are back in Castle Rock, which, honestly, as the last story he's written in Castle Rock, this does not do the town's justice. Castle Rock is a recurring setting for Stephen King novels. He's set a lot of them there, including novels such as Cujo and Needful Things. It is one of his preferred settings, and they usually have interconnected elements. This does not benefit from being in Castle Rock. There isn't enough time. We don't spend enough time with any of the main characters. It is just an excuse to write something, I think. We follow a character who spends his time just going about his day when he realises he's losing weight. This is probably going to have spoilers simply because the book is so short that to describe even the basic plot elements is to describe all that this book has. So, I will say now, this is not really non-spoiler. However, it's not really going to make much of a difference because there's so little in the way of actual plot. There's not much that I could spoil. I won't give away the ending, but yeah. So, the main character is losing weight. He doesn't know why. He feels more vitality than he did before, and he thinks this is a good thing. Over time, he realises that not only is he losing weight, he's becoming just less, as if he's vanishing. And this applies to anything he's holding or carrying as well. This is where I have a problem with it. This is clearly a supernatural phenomenon. If you get onto a set of scales and you weigh way less than you think you should, that's fine. That can be a medical thing, sure. But if you then pick up a 20-pound dumbbell and get on the same set of scales and it still registers the same, as if the dumbbell just doesn't exist, that's no longer a medical issue. That is clearly some kind of supernatural force of physics. No one at all in this book ever considers that. They spend time talking about his weight loss as if it's just some kind of serious medical issue, as if he's come down with cancer. That's how they discuss it, because he talks it through with a couple of close friends as he tries to come to terms with the fact that he's losing weight at an alarming rate that looks like it's going to kill him. And they have talks with why don't you go see a doctor? Why don't you go to the clinic and get a checkup? Fuck the clinic. The guy is a black hole of mass. The guy can lift up a heavy chest and it becomes the weight of a balloon. This is not a medical issue. And Stephen King, I expect better from you than this kind of sloppy writing. That was pathetic as a plot hole. That was just not good enough. Not even close to good enough. For fuck's sake, write an extra 50 pages and actually consider the bloody plot. So yeah, I was not impressed. As a conceit, that was a wasted effort. And frankly, you did it better in one of your very first books when you wrote Thinner as Richard Bachman. Because that is basically the same book, only better. Better in every way. So what else happens? Well, it's not very long, as you can see. So what else happens? The main character meets a lesbian couple, and for some reason, even though this is a relatively recent read, like I think it came out in the last couple of years, in fact. Let's see, do we have a date for this release? 2019. Despite the fact that this was only 2 years old, everyone in Castle Rock is broadly low-key homophobic. And they treat the lesbian couple like dirt. And like they just don't like them. They just, they'd rather pretend they're not there and things like that. And it is clearly a point of social commentary which falls completely flat because no, Stephen, that's not what happens. For a start, you set this in Maine, which is one of the more right-wing, more progressive states, which means that if you actually go to Maine, you'd know that the general population of Maine are pro-gay rights and very respectful of the gay rights movement. If you had low-key homophobics in a small town in Maine, they would be ostracized before the gay people were. That is not how modern society works. If you'd set this in Alabama or Louisiana or part of Texas, where there is still that deep religious Confederate approach to sexuality, then sure, if you'd set this in a community that had a high level of Muslim or Chinese immigration, where there is still a string of quite strong anti-gay sentiment, then yes, that could have worked. But you put this in white suburban left-wing America and claim that the average person is broadly homophobic, and it does not ring true at all. You cannot write a contemporary novella, market it as a novel, sell it as a full-price fucking novel, and then completely misrepresent the place that you're setting it in. It does not work. And again, I expect better from you, Stephen King. You can do way better. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. This was a disturbingly short waste of time. It is, how long is it exactly? It is 132 pages long, and it has large margins. Like, large margins. With, like, a little picket fence around. Which basically means these pages are quite lax in the amount that they've got in them. There's also entire splash pages when there's a chapter break, and they count to the page number. So, this is short as can be. Right. $28 lines, around 10 words per line, so you're looking at 280. We drop 10% to account for line breaks. So we're looking at probably around 250 words per page, at most. With the splash pages, you could probably knock that down to about 240, maybe even less. With 130 pages, you can tell how little it is. Now, I've looked it up. I know that this is less than 40,000 words. That is honestly about 2 hours reading for the average person. Even with a fast reading speed, it makes very little difference. There's not that much to this. The average person will read this in 2 hours or less. Even a slow reader will get through this in 3 hours. You can do this in one sitting. You can. I did it in 3 sittings, because I took my time with it and read it in dribs and drabs. I did like a 20-minute read here, an hour reading there, and a little bit more reading another time. So I did this in 3 sittings, but I still read it over 3 days, and I read it casually without really thinking. It is not a big commitment, but honestly, it's still a waste of your time. This is one of Stephen King's worst attempts at writing. There is very little of note in this. it has nothing to say, and honestly, without giving much away for the conclusion, because I don't want to give spoilers away for anyone who does want to at least check it out, because it is such a short read, you may just want to check it out just to see if I'm right. Because let's face it, this would not be much of an investment to check what I'm saying. The ending was completely unsatisfying. It answered none of the questions I had. It didn't really approach the story matter with any serious contemplation. There wasn't any resolution that I could think of. The closest we got was a character who was previously mildly homophobic became less homophobic, and that didn't feel earned in the slightest. The mystery just was thrown in there, was handled poorly, and was ignored and never resolved. It is a mess, an absolute mess. The quotes on the back: "An unforgettable and deeply moving conclusion, New York Post. Whoever wrote that should be fired. Joyful, uplifting, and tinged with sadness, Entertainment Weekly." Who the hell wrote that? Because I don't know what the hell you were reading. It wasn't this. One of King's great strengths as a writer is his mastery of the milieu of small-town USA. He doesn't know what the politics of small-town USA is, and he's American. I'm a fucking foreigner and I'd have got it closer. A quick, satisfying read, the sign of a master simply elevating his own legendary game yet again. USA Today. Did someone pay you for that review? Seriously. This is one of the worst books Stephen King has put out, and it's not even bad in a hilarious way. It's not even bad like Tommyknockers is bad. Tommyknockers is bad because he was so high off his face on cocaine that he didn't know what the fuck he was writing, which means that it goes way off the rails in hilarious ways. There is some entertainment in reading that. This is just boring and trite. So yeah, star rating, 1 star. 1 star. A waste of everyone's fucking time. Thank you for watching YouTube. I'll see you next time. Bye.